Hey, what's up, everyone? Matt Scott here, back for episode 5 in my series of sorry, the dog's bugging out over here. My series of often trod plugins that I use when I'm in the Yurt and don't have access to my UAD plugin suite and or plugins that would otherwise require a steady internet source for licensing purposes. So these are things my like ride or dies that I can just be out in the woods and not worry about having conventional means for power, etc., and still get the job done. Today in episode 5, we've covered a lot of turf, right? Over the last hour and a half, we went through EQs, we went through compressors and types of compression that often get used. We had an edition just on delays and reverbs where I went over my limit and actually gave you 8 different things I use a lot. And then in this last episode, we were looking at harmonics and saturation, and we had 5 plugins that I use a lot for that application. So what's left? Well, it's kind of the hodgepodge in some ways. I mean, not to say that spatialization isn't important, but if you're talking about the essential elements, there's a lot you can do with just left, right, center. There's a lot you can do with 0 to 180 on either side. There's a lot you can do without delving into those purely panning plugins or those purely like width widener plugins. But there is an application for them, and some of them are totally sick, and I use the hell out of them. So we're going to take a tour of that. We'll also just look at some of the tools, like the unsexy stuff that's maybe just to like do a task concretely and let you move on, less the arty stuff that's, I feel like when I talk about coloration or when I talk about some of these like flowery terms, it falls a little more on the creative and the less necessary. There's also plugins that are just necessary that I use all the time, and they're not that sexy. They just do a job and do it well. So I'll try and hit on some of those too. Will we do it in 5 plugins? I don't know, because I don't even know necessarily what plugins I'm going to pick out as we go through this conversation, but I'm going to take you along for the ride, and hopefully you and I will grow in the same direction through this shared experience. Dog's bugging out. I think she's got to pee. So let me share the screen and take the dog out, and we'll jump into it. So if you've been watching other videos, you want to go outside? Go ahead. If you've been watching my other videos, obviously, there's a million plugin manufacturers, and what I personally have is such a small part of the overall picture, the overall landscape of people who create music and produce and enjoy this process in the way that I do. But for myself, Sound Toys, above all else, has been one that's come with creative products that both serve necessary purposes, but are also like fun and allow me to activate kind of, separate more the right brain and left brain sides and probably let me use more of that left brain energy. So the first one I want to point to in the sound field section is micro shift. Micro shift, as I understand it, is kind of related to or in the family of H910. So the heralded Eventide product that could help make space in a mix and like widen things through the act of very well detuned sets of delays. And it has this really almost what can be described as nauseating effect when overused. In fact, I think that's one of the presets on this, nauseator. But really can just, I don't know, it's remarkable in the right context. There's you can take a vocal and it just spreads it while also focusing your center, and you actually have this knob here, focus, which is you kind of find the frequency range you want most of the attention of this effect distributed to, and it can kind of just make it poke out while adding depth and width. And it's a hell of a sound. In conventional applications, you might remember, or it might remind you of kind of ways of treatment of like Stevie Wonder vocal, using a sound kind of like that. David Bowie used it a lot, perhaps more in effects terms, less as like a background application, but it just has a way of creating width and depth kind of in the way that you would use like the Haas effect, where you make a copy of a source and then you delay them and put them on a bus and spread them left and right, and it kind of creates a wide stereo field out of a mono signal. This is basically that, just with a lot more nuance. And it's friggin' fun to use. The one thing I will say, and consistently, I have a tendency to ride this thing hot, and I love it on a vocal bus, or I'll use it on an effects bus in adjacency with the vocal bus. Um, I almost always get called out because someone's like, "Yeah, there's just some weird spatial thing going on, and it's too dense or it's too wide," and I don't even know how to articulate it. It's usually because I'm riding this too hot. I love the sound of it, but I can understand why it would be distracting for some vocalists. But I'll use it to great effect on keyboards. I'll use it with acoustic guitars. Throw it on a drum bus and see what happens. Like it's micro shift. It's sick. So definitely check that out. That would be high on my list of to-dos and considerations. Again, comparable to the last video, there's like two directions I want to head in. I'm trying to decide which way to go about it. I think I'll do this one first just because it's easy. So two very practical things. So you should know, I don't even mention it, but like I use Ozone stuff all the time. I think I'm running, what is it, Ozone 8 right now, or maybe even Ozone 9. I don't have the newest version because it dropped like a month after I'd already updated and I didn't want to pay again. But I use all the Ozone stuff for mastering, and then you can part out those parts, obviously, if you just want the limiter section or you just want the dynamic EQ section, et cetera, et cetera. But within that product line, there are also two things that I use constantly that don't necessarily fall squarely in any of those categories. And these often live on my master bus or thereabout, and they're really utilitarian, but serve critical functions in the mixing application, if not mastering application too. So tonal balance control, what this is in the simplest of terms, if I was playing music right now, in fact, let me just isolate this beat. Let me see which track we have this on. I'll actually show you some shit here real quick. I'm just gonna make sure it's soloed for reals. All right. Let's see. I don't think I have my playback engine set up properly. I don't. Let me do a thing real quick while we continue this conversation. So essentially, with the plugin I'm going to show you right now, tonal balance control, what it'll allow you to do, and it's very cool, is you can put it on your source. I got to reshare this with you. You can put it on your source. Share sound. Brilliant. Share. Put it on your source, and it will give you a pretty accurate spectral readout of what's going on a given track. So let's bump it up. Have it. Tonal balance control. So over this beat that IME produced, you can see in the category of bass heavy tracks, the bass is actually extra hot. Low mids are perhaps a little low. High mids are underrepresented. Your highs are actually pretty close. Fine. You can see the track overall right now, it looks like there must be a sizable dip somewhere between 1,000 and 4. So there must be throw this on a master bus and forget about it and come back every once in a while. What I do, so you can load up different presets. They are what they are. They're very general, but I'll mix until I get to a place where I'm like this track is really balanced. Like I feel like it's there, and then I'll put tonal balance and I'll look at that track again. And it'll be like, yeah, true, but what you'll also notice is that there's a little more energy around 600 that you're hearing. You're just not correcting yet. It's gonna point it out for you that you can take care of that, or look at the source of that and bring that back. And you find to increase coloring and balance of different elements. Again, it's just something I use. It's kind of hokey that visualization to tell you information anyway, but we do it all the time, right? I mean, it's whether we like it or not. If we're working in a computer, like we're using VU meters, that alone is very different. But tonal balance control gets a lot of love. Have found it really helpful, and I guess in the field of audio engineering, audio mixing, like it's easy to feel insecure about this shit. And so sometimes just having a plug-in to be like, okay, all right, yeah, I actually am on track. I'm not just bugging today. My ears aren't fatigued, whatever. Like that is actually helpful. Like, and I've used it to great effect. So kudos Isotope for a very practical product. Um, that in some ways I suppose could be perceived as a shortcut, but it's really just it's handy. I'll use it at the end of any project, and just give it a few seconds of my time, and it helps me really fine tune. So the other thing, also an Isotope product, because Isotope's pretty great, is Insight. Insight is nothing but metering, like overbearingly intelligent metering on every goddamn level you could imagine. Sound analysis, music production analysis, meters you can apply everywhere and anywhere. The thing I use it the most for, like overwhelmingly, and frankly, the only thing I use it for a lot of the time, is levels and loudness. To have your levels and to have a LUF meter that's just easy access to see where you're hitting on your master bus. I have other plugins that can do it. I just like the way this one looks. Like I'll often set up my second screen. It'll just be all of my mastering, or my, even if I don't have mastering on, but I have a master limiter on that I'm just shaving a couple dB off even from the start of mix. Alongside Insight, alongside tonal balance control, alongside anything else I just want to be able to grab information from in real time. It's super handy to know, relative loudness and LUFs that you're mixing into. A lot of people feel like the LUFs conversation is kind of already obsolete, and it's a post-traumatic, volume war type thing. But like, I don't know. It's handy. I like the information. It helps me make more informed decisions. I like to run tracks hot sometimes, and if I pay for it and my LUFs are at like 7.2 at integrated volume, well, I have to accept that, even though I might like that sound. That's way too hot for a lot of systems. So maybe let's find a way to keep the energy up, but back off on the output. Um, it's just kind of an inevitability. But anyway, so for that reason alone, that plugin gets a ton of use from me. It's really effective. I'm a fan. I'll give you one of the Waves plugins I use, because the other one, honestly, it's less interesting. The Maserati HMX I use less. CLA bass. Chris Lord Algae series, I think he has, one of these for every instrument. And it's just like you have faders that control all the nuances of, how he would set up a bass sound. So input sensitivity right here. There is a little meter that goes from yellow to green to red to orange and everywhere in between to kind of tell you what, for this to sound its best, you want to hit it at an optimal level. The preamp wants to hit the system at an optimal level, so it's really quick for you to get there using this. And then it's like all the things you would think of as far as compression, modulation, sub, attack, like gristle, but all as really convenient faders with buttons to kind of dial in what that EQ range is. So on treble, you can go from honk to bark to cut, and each one kind of has its own width and direction it plays with. Compression, sub, whether or not you're even engaging the sub, distortion, growl, roar, rip. They really do what they say. They sound good. In essence, this is a one and done on a bass. More so when, let's say I just finished tracking with a client and we got a good demo of a tune going down, and we got 2 hours left in our day, and he decides he wants to use those 2 hours to get a rough mix to leave with. So if I want to save a half hour, I'll just throw this on the bass, and with a couple of little tweaks, I'll get a passable bass sound to blend in. And it's not to say I won't come back and replace everything I did there, or if I don't replace it, maybe I'm putting an EQ in front of it and something after. But as a quick and dirty way to get a pretty good bass sound that just gets out of your way, kind of like Little Plate does in the realm of plate reverbs, it fits that bill, and it gets a lot of use, I guess, out of convenience. But there's nothing wrong with that. Mixing a song is a lot of damn work. Like, Sometimes you take the thing that's convenient because it helps you move along and keeps the energy up, especially when sessions can get draining and you just kind of feel like you're stirring the pot after a while. Um, so a couple more to share, and I think we'll wrap this up. I'm just kind of weighing my options here before I trod the path. Okay. Yep, we'll just go back and do that one. All right. So, old school for sure, but it doesn't need to be complicated, and the applications are endless and really helpful. So, Pitch 2 or Pitch within Avid, one of the included plugins, I use this for, pitch correction, like literally someone played a wrong note and I've got to find the semitone above to get it in tune with the rest of the track. Like this gets a ton of use just applied directly to the waveform itself, not even as an insert. But one thing increasingly I've been doing, I work with all kinds of clients, and when I'm working oftentimes with rappers, it really comes down to, well, if I listen to 10 tracks, there's like an average of what that rapper's vocal sounds like, right? In terms of tonality, in terms of the depth of the vocal, and really the pitch. Even if a rapper isn't singing, there is a pitch to what some might perceive as monotone. Well, sometimes those rappers day to day, like their breath control varies or any number of circumstances, or they're just changing as a rapper. And they might be rapping. It could be even, I'm sorry to keep going back to this, but as I'm talking, I'm thinking really what this could be is indicative of having a bad headphone mix too. If you got to push harder from your diaphragm, it's going to perhaps force more air through your pipes, which may make you more inclined to say more harsh and more up pitch from your relaxed lower voice. Well, when that happens, um, sometimes the rappers either contact me about it or I just do it on my own, because I know that's what the track needs. Is I'll take it. Okay, so that voice seems like they were a little stiff. I'm just going to take it down 12 cents. And really, the length of any pitch shifting I'm going to do is probably going to be within the fine range. It's rarely that I'm even going to go down a semitone or a half step, because with any plugin like this, there is degradation of the signal the further you deviate, with time-based stuff and pitch stuff. So I try not to veer too far because I don't want to sound robotic or unnatural, but it's amazing what can happen with, I say rappers, but really vocalists too, with sometimes it feels like their vocal is just not in the sweet spot of their voice, which is what the beat or the production really calls for. So even just I'm going to bring them down or I'm going to bring them up, a matter of sense, can help it just sit a little better in a mix. That's kind of a sneaky little thing, but it does make a difference, and you'll just have to try it and come to your own conclusion as far as that goes. It's been my experience that's been pretty helpful and useful. You may have another means to an end, though. So as I wrap up here, I want to remind you, feel free to reach out with questions, with ideas, with your own set of plugins. Are you in a similar situation to me right now and have, a plugin or a group of plugins or a company or a means to an end that satisfies you? Like, what is that? Why is that? How have you come to adopt that as a principle or like something you come back to? I think the more we have these conversations with each other, the easier it gets to move the needle forward and to be more open with ourselves and with our crafts and with our ideas and all of these different applications. So by all means, be in touch as you see fit. I am going to do one more plugin for you, and I guess it's a jack of all trades in the way the 9000J is, because it definitely falls in that same camp. This is another BrainWorks console emulation, and a pretty awesome one. You'll notice in many ways it's similar to what the SSL offered in terms of the way the modules break out. I think with this one, you have even more flexibility in some different ways, and more importantly, you have the sound of Focusrite, like an console, and what that can bring to the equation. These consoles, I think what they're modeling here were quite coveted. There were not that many made. But it gives you the full strip and all the flexibility that comes in there. I'll level with you. One of the things I will use the Focusrite strip for a lot, and you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do something I said I wasn't going to do, and I'm just going to play it back for you here with audio. Here we go. So, Focusrite strip has a de-esser built in that I think sounds just great. So we'll try and tackle some of these hi-hat. I'm going to set it at 7.2. Set your frequency. You can listen. Yeah, you hear that. Exactly where it was. I want to get rid of some of that. Now I set my de-essing sensitivity. Ducks that frequency way out. Really great on a vocal in need of de-essing in a very natural way and a simple way. I feel like some de-essers feel overcomplicated with the different ends to a mean, the buttons, and the interface, I guess, is what I'm getting at. This is really simple but effective as a de-esser. Compressor sounds good. I like it less than the SSL, but the compressor is very functional. The filters sound fine. The EQ is cool. I really like kind of this. So if here is more of our selectable EQ bandwidth section of the Focusrite, and I mean, it's pretty awesome. So you have, these different bands. This is your gain within a band, and then this is your band select. And by default, you're on the interior band, which is from 600 hertz to 6K. And then if you click here, you're now in the exterior band, which is 1.8 to 18. So you've in that same setup with your low and mid frequencies. So you've got all that flexibility with the shelving applications here. And then you have kind of your finishing move EQ, end of your all gain staging sweetener, and then a happy little fader to ride on the end. Yeah, it sounds great. Again, honestly, I will load this just to use the de-esser because I like the sound of that so much. But innately, whenever you run audio through a console like this strip has, you're going to get the benefits of whatever they were modeling. Even its passive state, it still is imparting a character, and you'll reap the benefits of that with this thing too. So I'll make that the last of my kind of rando bottom of the barrel plugin ideas and thoughts for you now. Again, more videos coming soon. Be in touch in the comments or any way you'd like if you'd like to further the conversation. If you've used these plugins and have had a different experience, if you just want to chew the fat about recording in general, I'm way down to talk. I love this stuff. So hit me up. Be well, be safe, be cordial, be kind. Be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. Take the time to think about that. What did I do yesterday? Is there one thing I could do differently that would make me feel better, that would help people around me, that would improve my environment, that would make someone else's life easier? Is there one small thing I can do? And it doesn't have to be moving mountains. It could be brushing your teeth, right? To help someone out. If we all had that mentality, the world we live in would be a very different place. But change can happen, and it starts at home, in my yurt, in my underwear, with my little Debbie shirt on. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.